GraffitiEyes stencils, and I'm continuing with the series on tips for getting perfect stencil transfers. So these are all the highlights of my touring class and convention class, and I just wanted to make it available, all these tips to everybody out there. So here's a super important tip for getting a perfect stencil transfer, and that's got to do with how you're holding your stencil and some tips for keeping your stencil being held in place when you're dealing with a runaway model. All right, so first of all, you guys know what I'm talking about when I say a runaway model. It's like you take your stencil and you put it against their head and they start going like this, you know, or you go like this and they just go like this, you know, and they're just moving. There's no way you're going to be able to get a good stencil transfer if they're moving their head around and going like this. And like even me, the stencil queen here, at the end of the day, if it's like the last kid and you just painted 100 kids and it's just like, get me out of here, I'm done, you know, and they're running away and I'm trying to do it, I'm just like, I'm just gonna do it anyways. It doesn't work, okay? It's worth taking the 5 seconds to just go through it and get them to sit still. So when you got a runaway model and you go like this and they start running away right away, what I do is I say, oh, I need you to hold your head really strong. And so what I do is I like squeeze their head like it's in a vice, right? So I'll be holding the stencil and say, I need you to hold your head really strong. Okay, I'm gonna use my stencil and put the shapes on here, whatever shapes I'm using, the stars or whatever, right? I'm gonna put the stars on there, but I need you to hold your head really strong. And I vice their head like this, so it's kind of pushing this way against this way. Now, as I mentioned, I've taught this class in conventions, you know, in front of all kinds of audiences, and so I get all this audience feedback as I'm teaching, and so all kinds of people have told me, you know, what they say. Oh, I say this and I say that. So I've had some people tell me, I tell them to lean into me, or push against me. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll try that. And so I said, push against me, and the kid starts reaching out for me like this, like they got their eyes closed. They start going like this, and I'm like, forget it. Hold your head really strong, because that never fails me. I had somebody say, oh, I tell them to resist. So I'm like, I'm not going to tell a 4-year-old to resist me. One, it sounds creepy. Two, I don't think a 4-year-old knows what the word resist means. So I never even bothered trying to use that one. Anyways, if you guys know, what do you say? You know, hold your head really strong and squeezing their head in a vice is so rarely does it not work. Like if they're just gonna continue to go like this, forget it. I'm not gonna even bother trying to use a stencil. I'm like, see you later. We'll do whatever, you know, you don't need the stencil, obviously. But what do you guys say? Is there something that works for you? Say it in the comments, because I'd be curious to hear what works for you guys. And it'd be nice to share and see what other people have tried, and then we can all just try different stuff. Okay, and so the other thing about holding your stencil against somebody, I'm going to get really close to the camera here. So when you're holding your stencil, I hold it in 2 spots, okay? And you can see, hopefully, it doesn't go too blurry. When you hold it, like your skin is really pushing out against it, right? So I don't just like hold it like this and then go, you know, like people are getting bad transfers because they're not holding their stencil on tight enough. Nobody wants to see my forehead that close, but something like these lines are trickier, so you want to hold it nice and smooth and hold it in 2 spots all the time, in 2 spots around where you're going to be working. If you're going to be working in multiple areas, then you work your fingers around or the areas that you're going to be working in, but you always hold it in 2 spots, all right? You can see, like, I'm holding it so tight that it kind of left a little imprint on there. You don't want to hold it, so when you're dealing with like old people's skin and it's like you know, it's like really thin and stuff like that. And if you hold it on there, it actually like bubbles out. So I always think to myself, like when I do that, because I'll hold it like the same pressure for everybody, I'll actually ease up a little bit on old people. Because I always think when I take my sponge and I go like that, it's like a cheese grater. And I'm like, ugh. So no cheese grating skin. But you do want to hold it really tight so that you can see that there's like a super seal. I don't know if this, but you can see like it puffs out a little bit without the whole cheese grater thing happening. You're holding it, like my fingertips are turning white, and I'm holding it in 2 spots very firmly in place. And then I'll move it. I'm not going to bother going back over here because I've already painted there. So if it lifts up from over there, who cares? I'm going to move my fingers down and work around my stencil. Do you see what I mean? Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. And then another part of holding your stencil is once you've sponged it and you've got your transfer going, is actually removing the stencil from their face. So I always like let one finger go and then I will peel my stencil away. And that way it does, because if you just like go like this, I've done it where I'm like this and then I know that I'm going to have a perfect transfer because I know I got the right amount and you just know it's going to be perfect. And then I went like this and I smeared it downwards and I was like, you got to be kidding me. I just messed it up. So that's an important thing, is the actual like peeling your stencil away. So I'll oftentimes like let go of the top, whatever's like higher up on the face, and I'll peel it downwards. And that way you're making sure that you're not going to like rub it off or anything during your stencil transfer. Plus you're actually doing like a little reveal. So there's like wow factor to it when you're doing your face painting. So it's kind of like a little presenting, ta-da! Do you know what I mean? And then parents get excited. And then when they see that what's happening and you kind of do that little reveal move, you get that ta-da moment. There's like, if you're doing paper vase, there's like higher likelihoods at this point that you can get a tip, because you can act all like, oh, this is turning out great, you know, do those kind of like expressive, happy kind of sounds and things along with the parents, and it boosts your kid in the chair, their excitement level and confidence level, like in a quiet kind of way. And oftentimes at that point, when I've peeled away the first stencil transfer, and you get like, especially if you're dealing with these nice little shapes, from like the Graffiti Madness and the Ultimate GraffitiEyes kits. There's something just like extra kind of stunning about the geometry in these shapes. And so parents will kind of almost like feel at ease with you and your artistic abilities and your talents and like how this is turning out, and they'll kind of relax a little and they'll turn and go back to texting or having a conversation with somebody and leave you alone to paint and finish your job. So that's what I've found, at least, and I've face painted an awful lot. So hopefully that tip helps you guys. That's about holding your stencil and dealing with like the runaway moving kids. So telling them to hold their head really strong and kind of vice their head like this. Usually that works right away. If they're still going to be moving away because they can't understand you, maybe it's a language barrier, maybe it's whatever, they're not old enough to understand, you know, usually it's just those two things, you know, they're just not unable to understand. But there's something with the wording and the phrasing. Hold your head really strong. Push against me. I get this kind of thing. Resist. I didn't like that. I never ever heard anything else really constructive and helpful that I've tried. And this hold your head really strong thing just really worked for me. And then, yeah, when you're holding it in place, making sure that you're really holding it in place. Your fingertips should be turning white. Hold it in 2 spots and do a little peel away, reveal, peel your stencil away so you're not messing up your design. And hopefully let me know if that works for you guys, and if you're finding that you're getting better stencil transfers using those tips. And yeah, give me some feedback, leave some comments if you've got some tips that are good for, you know, communicating with the kids in your chair on how to deal with these runaways. Run away, don't run away, stay here, I need you to paint your head. All right, so yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting the whole GraffitiEyes movement. You can go on Instagram and find all kinds of GraffitiEyes artwork from face painters all over the world posting up in there. Hashtag GraffitiEyes. And buy locally, right? Go to your local stores. They've probably got my stencils in there. So, yeah. Well, take care, you guys. I love you.